In the heart of Africa lies Rwanda, a country known for its picturesque landscapes and vibrant culture. But in the spring of 1994, Rwanda became the setting for one of the most brutal and horrifying events in modern history, the Rwandan Genocide. The seeds of this atrocity were sown long before the violence erupted. Rwanda was home to two main ethnic groups, the Hutu and the Tutsi. For decades, tensions simmered between these groups, fueled by historical grievances and political power struggles. The Hutu, who made up the majority of the population, resented the Tutsi, who had historically held more power and privilege. On April 6, 1994, a plane carrying Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana was shot down as it approached Kigali, the capital. The president, a Hutu, was killed in the crash. Almost immediately, extremist elements within the Hutu government blamed the Tutsi for the assassination and used it as a pretext to launch a systematic campaign of mass murder. What followed was 100 days of unimaginable horror. Hutu extremists, organized by government officials and local leaders, began a coordinated and ruthless massacre of Tutsi men, women, and children. Ordinary Hutus were incited to join the slaughter, often under threat of violence themselves. Neighbors turned on neighbors, friends on friends. Roadblocks were set up across the country, where armed militias known as the Interahamwe would check identification cards and kill anyone identified as Tutsi. Thousands sought refuge in churches, schools, and hospitals, only to be surrounded and massacred. The weapons of choice were often machetes, clubs, and even agricultural tools, making the killings all the more brutal and personal. In just 100 days, an estimated 800,000 people were killed, about 10% of Rwanda's population. The violence was not limited to mass killings, it included widespread sexual violence, with countless women and girls brutally raped and mutilated. Families were torn apart, entire communities decimated. The international community largely stood by, paralyzed by indecision and bureaucratic delays. The United Nations had a peacekeeping force in Rwanda, but they were not given the mandate or the resources to stop the genocide. Desperate pleas for help from UN commanders on the ground went unanswered, and the world watched in horror as the genocide unfolded on nightly news broadcasts. Amidst the carnage, there were stories of incredible bravery and humanity. Some Hutus risked their lives to hide and protect Tutsi friends and neighbors. Rwandan soldiers who defected from the government forces formed the Rwandan Patriotic Front (RPF) and launched a military campaign to stop the genocide. Led by Paul Kagame, the RPF eventually took control of Kigali in July 1994, effectively ending the genocide. In the aftermath, Rwanda was left to grapple with the immense trauma and devastation. The country embarked on a long and difficult journey of recovery and reconciliation. The government established the Gakaka courts, traditional community-based courts, to deal with the overwhelming number of genocide cases. While imperfect, these courts aimed to bring some measure of justice and healing to the survivors. The Rwandan genocide is a stark reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the consequences of unchecked hatred and division. It also highlights the importance of international intervention and the moral imperative to prevent such atrocities from happening again. As Rwanda continues to rebuild and look towards a future of unity and peace, the memories of 1994 serve as a solemn testament to the resilience of its people and the enduring need for vigilance against the forces of hatred and violence. This story is a haunting and powerful reminder of the atrocities that occurred during the Rwandan genocide, one of the darkest chapters in recent history.